fighting. We win larger and larger parts of the city of Modstock, and thereby force a crossing over the river Terek. But one can already notice that the opponent is not giving in so easily here. Doggedly fighting and well supplied, this battle is taking a high toll on comrades and also on tanks. But the crossing has been forced and the opponent driven out. Army leadership want to expand the advance as it is explained to us. Therefore, we must move on. With the last reserves, we roll along the Terek and clear the way ahead. By now, the Red Air Force can be seen in the vicinity every day. Slowly, the supply for us is getting tight, since for now, everything has to be transported through Mozdok further toward the east. There's talk about overstretched supply lines. It's quite obvious if everything here is coming from inside the Reich. Of course, we capture a few things along the way, but fuel for the tanks is always a problem. The Russians are hardly ever driving on gasoline, and our tanks are really thirsty. During a stop 10 kilometers in front of the village of Terek, we get into an artillery barrage, which is packing a punch. We button down the hatches and hope that we don't catch a fat suitcase. It bangs and rattles. The tank is shaken through and through considerably. Large pieces of shrapnel and rocks are flung against the tank's steel. After 30 minutes, the nightmare is over. We cautiously peek out of the hatches. No hits. We lucked out once again. Today, however, it's not going any further. We hedgehog and hope to take the village the next day. After a restless night, it goes on. Just 5 tanks we have left. We are the bridgehead, which is now to be expanded up to the village. Then we're supposed to defend there first of all. We fan out and take the pioneers into the center. Already the dance begins. Artillery drives in between the combat vehicles. Anti-tank shelling out of field emplacements beats against us. Machine guns hammer onto us. So far, we have not identified any targets and are trying, first of all, to drive underneath the artillery fire. One tank is shot down. The crew bail out and are covering behind their own tank. We drive up close to the tank of the comrades. We can't pick them up right now. One of the crew jumps on top and points in the direction where he'd seen the anti-tank gun. I'm keeping my hatch closed, and I'm just about to relay the position to our tank gunner when the comrade who'd shown us the direction is hit by an anti-tank shell and torn into 2. A muffled thud against our tank. Later we learn that it had been an upper body that had been flung against our turret. Again a good man less, but we have the artillery piece in our sight. Fritz pulls the trigger, and the enemy anti-tank gun is nothing but a grey cloud of dust, iron and blood. We roll further and get closer to the town. A machine gun emplacement tries desperately to stop us, but the bullets are bouncing off us. Despite that, the Russians won't disappear, but are letting themselves be rolled over by us. Obviously, there's no way back for them. At the edge of the village, we position ourselves behind a stone building and wait for the pioneers. The armored personnel carrier advances. The infantry soldiers jump off and filter into the village. We can drive on and follow them. The right flank also seems to have been taken. I don't feel good about it, but we have to go on. Behind the pioneers we roll forward. Suddenly the soldiers storm into a different direction. With the head halfway out of the tank, I hear the shouts. "Enemy tank!" We come to stop and push ourselves to the right close to a large building. Not a moment too soon, because a front of a KV-1 is pushing itself slowly around the corner of the building. I shout to the gunner that he has to shoot into the tracks immediately. For another meter further and the turret would be able to turn towards us. The shot rings out and the track of the Russian tank is destroyed. But it keeps rolling forward. I give the driver the loud order to back up. That way we can change the angle. Perhaps it won't be able to hit us that way. I'm slowly starting to get nervous. We roll backwards along the wall until we can't get any further. Something has stopped us. The driver yells out, "We are stuck!" We can't go forward, otherwise the KV-1 will get us in its sights. Into the building we can't make it either this way. Damn it, what to do now? Feverishly I think about what I should do. The sweat is running across my face. My hands are shaking. Fritz looks at me questioningly. I only yell, "Load high explosive shells and fire on the enemy tank." They won't penetrate through, but will create one hell of a ruckus for the Russians in the KV-1. And another one behind. Possibly they will retreat. Nothing happens. They are still trying to aim at us with a turret. They shoot, the shell barely missing us. If it now shoots up the corner of the house, the next shell go directly into our turret. I watch the gun. Now I can't show any fear. The crew is expecting that I will lead them out of this. I tell Hermann that we have to go forward at full throttle upon my sign in a moment. Fritz should load an armor-piercing shell. Everyone has to pay close attention. There, the shot breaks. The corner of the building is gone. We receive a load of rocks and shrapnel. I scream, "Full throttle!" and our Panzer III takes a jump. I don't know how long the Russian will take for the next shot, but now it's now or never. We speed toward the enemy tank, go around it and turn our turret to the side. Now we are at its rear and the Russian turret slowly turns after us. I scream the loud fire command. We give him one in the rear and already the 50mm shell burns its way through the thin rear armor of the KV-1 only 4 meters away. "Another one!" I shout into the fighting compartment and Fritz launches the second one immediately thereafter. The KV-1 is on fire. The turret isn't turning any longer. The hatches fly open and the Russians bail out. We let them go. They won't make it far anyway. Completely shattered, I look down into the fighting compartment and see dirty sweat figures, but also a smile on their faces. That just barely worked out. We drive on, in case the KV-1 will still explode. I pull the head down because machine gun fire is hitting our tank. After 50 meters, we are shaken up again. The KV-1 blew up. We stop by a roadblock. Here we can't go on. Pioneers work their way up to us. The roadblock is supposed to be blown up. I watch the infantry soldiers as they are attaching a large explosive pack under fire. We back up. A short time later and the barrier is blown into 1,000 pieces. The resistance fades. We come further ahead. We drive in the lead and again receiving anti-tank gunfire, this time out of the buildings. The Crocs have placed their anti-tank guns inside the houses. As well as possible, we bring ourselves into cover. I get out and talk to a lieutenant of the Pioneers. Flamethrowers are brought up and the houses torched. 3 anti-tank guns fall victims to the flames. The screams of the burning enemies throwing themselves from the buildings lets one blood freeze in the veins. With our machine pistols, we relieve the poor devils. By evening, Terek is in our hands, but first we have to secure the town to the east and south. Strong forces are supposed to be moving towards us. Tirelessly, defenses are being worked up. Even 2 Russian artillery pieces are brought into position. However, there are no gunners for these. My tank is sitting behind a high wall and is securing to the south. I advise Fritz that he should shoot at identified targets. Hermann and I go over to one of the Russians' anti-tank guns. The lieutenant gives me another 3 soldiers, and already the dance begins. Russian tanks are attacking and approaching us at fast pace from the southeast. Artillery fire sets in, but it's poorly placed. I hope the Russian anti-tank gun will shoot straight. Now I'm profiting from the introduction on the anti-tank gun by the crew a few days ago. I look through the optic and aim at the T-34. I shoot, but the shell misses above the enemy tank. Damn, that was too high. I adjust the distance anew. Hermann reloads, and already the gun spits out red-hot doom into the front of the T-34. The shell disappears into the steel and tears the enemy tank into 1,000 pieces. We cheer, but it's not over yet. I look to see what my tank is doing. Round after round, Fritz is hurling into the BT-7s and T-34s. Another 2 tanks we managed to shoot down with a Russian anti-tank gun. Then the attack is repulsed. 7 Russian tanks are standing smoldering on the battlefield. Tired, we slump down next to our gun. The lieutenant stops by with a bottle of schnapps. We gave it to them good, this rotten gang, he remarks, and we all take a strong swing. We have to hold out till morning. Then relief will arrive, and we will be pulled out. Later by the tank I learned that Fritz had also shot and disabled a T-34 and destroyed a BT-7. One likes hearing that. Unfortunately, we don't have much more ammunition. If we are to remain here longer, it will be quite difficult. Tired, we still fix something to eat and await nightfall. Already the Russian flyers are in the air, but this time we are not the target. Further east, along the north bank of the Terek, other combat units are advancing. I hope we will be left alone here for now. 2 men remain inside the tank, the rest are finding a spot to sleep in one of the Russian houses. The next morning there's a lot of activity. The reconnaissance have discovered a large concentration of Russian trucks, and we think they will field a whole lot of infantry. So far, no relief or reinforcements have arrived. I hope that soon we will hear something from our regiment. The word is save ammunition and let the enemy come in close. We staked out the approaches for our field guns, so the artillery will be able to help out when it starts. Doesn't take long, and there's an alarm. Artillery fire is covering the village. After a brief but heavy rain of steel, the Red Air Fleet is already above us. But this time our fighter planes are on the spot and clean up really well. One Russian plane after another tumbles out of the sky and is honored with loud cheers. Now avalanches of Russian infantry are storming toward us. Now they really want to know for sure. Again, I'm sitting by the anti-tank gun, but this time I gathered some high-explosive shells. A half-track is also standing in the line and is able to bring its 20mm into effect into the ground battle. The show begins, we open fire on the poor devils. Wave after wave is running into its doom. The tank turret waves back and forth and is firing with machine gun and main armament. It's strange to view this from here, but I have to take care of my anti-tank gun now. My hits are letting entire groups of Russians fly into the air in clouds of human bodies, only to fall back to the ground like rag dolls. What on earth I am doing here? Death and doom I am bringing into the ranks of the enemy. But either them or us. That doesn't make it better, but at least one has a reason to fire again and again. After an hour, the nightmare is over. Hundreds of dead Russians are lying in the field in front of us in their own blood. The artillery had attempted to assist, but the fire had been too far behind the attackers. Therefore, it was not effective, but at least it sent Ivan on the run. In the afternoon, we are relieved. The mobile unit is supposed to lead another advance to the east. Therefore, return to Modstock and cross the northern bank. We still say farewell to the pioneers. They are now taking over the Ratschbum. How to make some decent music with it, they know now. 3 days we remain in Modstock before it's going against the enemy again. The company commander takes me aside and expresses praises and respect to me for the action in the village. I'm happy that we made it this far. I'm also becoming more confident when it comes to decisions. But it won't be long, I'm afraid, until I'll have to relinquish the command. After all, I'm merely a tank gunner, not a commander.